Hello there guys, welcome. I'm doing a little discussion on my predictions for the Season 10.2 patch and how it's going to affect support. Maybe the start of play-in. Well, play-ins is on this patch, but 10.2 will be the start of probably competitive Smite for most teams, I think. And also ranked as well. And discussing mostly what's going to happen. So the few notable changes that we need to think about from the patch were one, the binding nerf, removing the 5 free penetration that it provided, or prot shred, sorry, on the initial go of the item, that now not being the case anymore, so nerfing supports that wanted to rush binding first, because it provides 5 less penetration early. Still a great item and still a great late game, but because it has 5 less prot shred on it, I would recommend going at second, not first now, for items like Thieves and Cloak. The second big change was Cloak nerf. Cloak got shifted, I guess. So it got 15 of each prots removed from the upgraded item. However, so it's gone from 55 down to 40 for both, but the internal cooldown of the proc of it has gone from 10 seconds down to 8. Now, that's a lot. 8 seconds, obviously, if you think about the overall stacking time, it's 30 stacks times 10. 300, so 5 minutes was the old one. It's gone down by 20%, so it's gone down to 240. So yeah, 4 minutes. I mean, that's assuming you're getting it every single time, which I can assure you no one is. My fastest stacking time has been around 16 minutes, which was kind of intense getting it done like that. So Cloak shift, again, probably making it where gods that can easily proc Cloak can now do it more often. So gods with range, like Yemoja, ranged autos, like Savanas, can maybe be a little bit higher rated on Cloak, just because Cloak is still very, very strong and very core, but just means it's a lot easier to stack now. So worse at the high end, on average better. So that's one thing. And then Geb got a buff as well. So Geb got just a small buff, which is just very menial, but it's going to help him since his only damage ability he got a buff. And then the other change would be the changes to other roles and how that affects support. So the first one is, the next one is Crusher and Heartseeker got a nerf. They didn't get a huge nerf. Heartseeker got nerfed for squishies, not for tanks, so it's the same item against us. And then Crusher got an overall nerf. Again, power scaling, the penetration is still there, doesn't really affect us. The only change that does affect us is kin size. Kin size getting another 1% max HP added per auto, and more attack speed. Ridiculous change, but fair dues. So gods with higher HP pools maybe being valued slightly less. Gods that are more immobile. Gods that are diving maybe. Now that you're diving into gods like that are hitting harder, it makes diving weaker on average, rather than peeling for your own team. Again, it makes a little bit less sense. So let's go on with the tier list and let's talk about where things have changed, because I did have the last video I uploaded of the tier list. I think Maui was still up there, and Maui got nerfed, so I need to include that in my changes now as well. Let's start with Terra. I've been a big vocal person about Terra, saying that she's broken, blah, 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 blah. She's even better. She's just very good right now. She's very easy to play at the low end, very high skill cap if you go with body blocking in the walls, but it's certainly not needed. I would recommend everyone learning about Terra Ultimate, how it works. I think I have a guide on my YouTube. That'll be in the description. But Terra is very easy to play, very fun. She used to have a struggle level 2, level 3, but now with the starts, she gets the lane level 2 for free. And the second and third wave in duo are very easy because there's nothing to fight for. There's no scepter. So you can easily lose those second and third waves and hit level 3, and then you're on your power spike. You're also not rotating out of lane pre-level 5, like for Scorpions from last year. I've got a cat licking my foot. So Terra's very strong. She's also, the walls are a lot thinner, so it means you can body block a little bit easier. Terra's really good this year with Low Sickle as well. Maui has just been knocked down a peg. He's still very strong. He's still very easy to play at the low end. He's still very, very strong. Mechanically, you have to be gunning him, comboing the 3, the 1, the ult. His 2 is still very strong for team fights. The issue with Maui comes from the fact that before you used to be able to throw your ult in 90 seconds. Now it's 110. You know, it's a little bit long. It makes sense. It's kind of balanced for the ultimate, but personally, when I went into Worlds, I didn't think Maui was going to be that strong until until the actual games happened, and then I just kept hitting ults, and people didn't beat them. So I think as people get more used to playing against Maui and beating his ult, this god will maybe eventually need some sort of tuning, because his ultimate, you know, it's a long cooldown now. But he still does a lot of damage. He's still very strong early, mid, late game, and all you have to do is hit an ult on a frontliner, and you can still pick them off. Still very strong on overall, but not S tier right now for me. Yeah, I just think his 2 is his best ability, and the rest of them are a little bit. They're just good, but nothing insane. Next up is Bacchus. Bacchus for me is going to be A as well. Bacchus is a god with mitigation and a lot of high damage and a lot of mobility, especially if you build regrowth on him, which means that he doesn't get affected by all the hunter buffs like other gods do. He's building physical defense early. He's got mitigation, so he's good against the kin size. The thing about Bacchus is that he's very one-dimensional. His peel's very mediocre. He's very good at diving. He's very bad against gods like Ares and Wheelix, these gods that can pick on supports, Aokwang. So he's not the safest, but he can dive very well. He's very good against hunters, and that's kind of his thing that I would pick him against, is just hunter comps. But he does a lot of damage. You build Divine on him or something, I think he's really good. But the reason why he's not an S tier is because, again, I think he's a little bit one-dimensional. He lacks CC on the front line. He's very good at diving, but again, one-dimensional, as I said for 4 times now in the last minute. Next up would be Achilles support. So I've put a few more warriors in here by people suggesting that. What I'm going to say is that I think it's a little bit subjective where you put warrior and magical supports, because their matchups are very different. For example, you look at a matchup like Terra and Maui. Okay, Terra can't be knocked up by Maui ult. She can priest on his jump if she places her 2 correctly. There's a lot of intricacies there. Whereas warriors especially and assassins don't really have enough CC, and their kits aren't really safe enough to be considered matchups. You know, they're just either good in that game or they're not good individually. Like, for example, you could say Achilles is a good matchman to every Guardian because he's got an execute. It's like, oh, Achilles counts as every Guardian, but he just doesn't. You know, I would say actually that with the changes of the bruiser items. So last year you could go an item like, oh god, I'm trying to think of a bruiser item last year. I forgot every bruiser item last year. But imagine a bruiser item with power on it. Was it Runeforged? I think it went Runeforged on a little bit. But I honestly forgot all the items from last year. But you used to have like a bruiser item, for example, and you would do damage while being tanky. The problem now is that all the power's been removed from items, so you only do damage based off your procs. You don't do damage based off your initial hits anymore, which means training auto attacks with junglers is a lot weaker. That's why Achilles for me is going to be in. I think he's going to be a B or a C. I think I'll put him in B for now. He's a very mediocre god. The thing is with him is that his ult's always fucking good. His ult's good at every stage of the game. His ult's very good into gods like Cthulhu, into Khepri, which is probably one of his better matchups. But again, he's just a very mediocre god to me. His 2 and his 3 are not that great. His 1's very close range stun. His passive is good early game, but again, he's very ult reliant late game. Next up for me is going to be Ares. I'm going to move Ares up this patch into S tier. With junglers getting a little bit weaker, junglers being the best against Ares because they go on him before he goes on them. So the way that it works is if Ares goes blink, which Ares should always go blink. If Ares goes blink and the enemy jungler goes beads, the enemy jungler has to be less proactive because they haven't got blink to make plays. If they go blink, then they have to go on the Ares because otherwise the Ares will just pull them every single time. Or they can't use their ultimate aggressively because the Ares will just pull them. So Ares is very good into junglers, and junglers just got nerfed a little bit. Just going to help out Ares a little bit. He's good at peeling as well with his cripple. He's got max HP damage on his 3, so he's good against frontline. His 2's a great aura. He's a very good god overall right now. A lot of build paths. The only thing with Ares is you have to build blink level 1. Otherwise you're not playing him right. Yeah, but I think he's a very strong god. Usually he's better when you pick him 3rd or 4th though. Next up is Atlas. Atlas, I think, is going to be a god next patch. I think Atlas is kind of similar to... He's just a very standard damage-dealing frontline. Very similar to Bacchus, where his CC is a bit better than Bacchus's because of his 2. It lasts a little bit longer, but it's not that great. His 1, 2, a very slow combo. His 2 melee range pull is very, very slow. His 3 is good in some matchups, but with the buff of Wingblade... That's basically his 3. So against Ganesh, rather than going Atlas to counter him, you just go Wingblade, and it kind of does the same thing now. Pardon me, I have to stick my nose. Yeah, just a good god. Build 1 damage on him. He's fun to play, but he's not that great. He's just a good god that you can pick anytime you want. Yeah. Next up would be Athena. Athena is just a little better. Athena is a god that doesn't really get involved. She usually goes for a dash taunt, and that's all she does. She's just a very good god. I mean, what is to say? I don't think any of the changes really affected her. She's just a strong god. After playing her in my A to Z tier list, sorry, my playlist, my A to Z challenge on stream, Athena felt way stronger than I thought she would. She can build anything she wants. She's got good cloak procking. She can get any relics she wants, which makes her very unique. She has no bad matchups, maybe besides Ares, who can ult, and that feels pretty bad. But otherwise, she feels very, very clean to play. She's just a top god right now. Very good for duo queuing with the jungler as well. Geb is just going to be a B god. Now, Geb sometimes has games where he's the best god in the game. If you play against a crit hunter, a crit jungler, for example, like I see you're playing against a Mercury and a Hachiman, Mercury Jingwei, and you're playing against double crit, your passive comes in very clutch. It's the best passive in the game against crit. And then your shields are also good against gods like Fenrir, like Saket. You can cleanse the ultimates. But most of the time, he's pretty shit. His 1's not very good, his 2's very close range, his 3 is a long cooldown. But again, he's a counter pick god. He's like a 4th or 5th pick god where he can be really good for me. But Geb is here. He's very mediocre. Usually a little bit weaker, but there are some games. So usually he'd be down here on average. But for me, there are some games now that are so good against junglers that he can be a B god. Next was Hercules. Hercules for me is going to be an A god. Hercules is the best of the warrior supports for me right now. Purely because of the fact that he can abuse regrowth. Spoken about with Bacchus as well, that extra movement speed, especially with how squishy you are, unless you get full mitigation build, which is being nerfed next patch, then it's very important to be able to be fast because you basically avoid damage in a way. So movement speed is mitigation, technically. He's got a very good CC chain on peeling and engaging, so he's very two-dimensional, which is in a good way. His ult's probably the weakest part of his kit for support, but very good early for kills. Doesn't need to go blink, but you probably should. Just a very good god overall right now. Yeah, very good god. Just get clean with the 2s. Pretty fun to play. I'm just gonna move that there as well, just to get in here. I'm just gonna put Horus here as well, and I think I'm gonna put gods like Shiva as well. Put these two here actually. Just to speak about these gods a little bit before we move on, because they are the remaining warriors on the tier list here. These two are a little bit weaker than Hercules. Hercules has consistent double CC on his first 2 abilities, and he abuses regrowth. While Horus can proc regrowth on both his passive and his 3, his healing is actually very weak, and the movement speed he gets doesn't really do much. If Herc is moving around you, you're constantly worried about being pushed and pulled. Now, Horus, if he's going fast, his 2 and his 1 are strong on one person, but they don't really move you around and push you into out of position. They just punish you if you're already out of position. So not as good as you think they would be. Shiva his ultimate's very weak right now. It's only good from ahead, relies on blink. Horus doesn't rely on blink necessarily, but a god that used to be very objective based, and with less objectives in the game right now, that's why Horus is down here for me. And Hercules is up here because he's better at brawling. These 2 are better at team fights and better at objectives. Following on from that, I'm also going to just move Saket and Fenrir in here. Now, the thing about we'll put Fenrir here. Now, this is going to finish off the bruisers for the physicals. Saket is the worst support in the game after her scale changes on her ult. Her laning phase is terrible. Her mid game's terrible. She can't fight junglers anymore. She relies on blink. Do I need to say more? I don't think I do. Yeah, I don't need to say any more. She's just not good. Yeah, not a huge fan of Saket. Very limited CC, very blink reliant. Just move next. Just move on. Go next. Fenrir a little bit better. Fenrir, the reason why he's down here is because, you know what? No, Fenrir is C. Fenrir is as similar as Shiva and Horus. Fenrir can be good. The problem with Fenrir is that he is very reliant on people making a mistake and beads being down. You can be the one forcing beads. But building CDR on a support like Fenrir feels a little bit out of place. You want to be getting involved and taking poke trades with your 1-3, which means you usually want Sov, but you need CDR, so you want to go Pridwin. You want to go Cloak. Well, you can go Cloak, but you've got a lower HP ball than usual, so getting poked out means more because you're losing more percentage of your HP. There's just a lot of things that affect him. His level 1-2 used to be really good, and now level 1-2 in dual lane means a lot less. So that's why he's a little bit weaker than he used to be, where he used to be up here as a rank stomper. But again, he can be good from even if he gets a good engage on a front line. If he gets a big Pridwin proc, he can be a good god. He's just a little bit inconsistent compared to Hercules. And Saket's just terrible. Next up is Baron. Baron for me is going to be a B god. Baron is a very weird mage, but he's very, very fun to play. He requires a lot of understanding about how his kit works, to do with the Hysteria, which is passive, who you're applying Hysteria on. For example, if you apply Hysteria on a jungler and you hit your one on them, reducing their power by 30% and their attack speed by 30%, is a fight win. It's a fight win. You win the fight. You reduce the power by 30%. Oh, the fight's over. Kind of thing. But about applying that Hysteria safely, knowing when the root spreads. I've got a video coming up in tomorrow, I believe, of Baron with a few Baron tips on there if you want to watch that. Like knowing when to turn around when you're ulting. He's a very high skill character. He's also got a mage HP pool. His abilities are very narrow, apart from his 2. This god is very hard to play, but if you get a good matchup, for example, into an immobile Guardian, he is very, very good. Yeah, and you can also build like a Chronos Pendant on him as well, which just got buffed too. 10 power doesn't really do anything, but it will be good. Baron, one of the better mage supports. Following on from that, I will also place Eset and Nox, just to get rid of all the cards. I may as well get rid of all of them. Eset is the same as Baron, where they have some utility. They have utility that's just unmatched with her mitigation, her low CDs, her 3, which is the best ability in the game. It was the best ability in the game last year. It's now like a top 20 ability. Doesn't seem like a lot, but when it's top 20 out of like over 700 abilities, it puts it a little bit more into perspective. 600. Anyway, Eset's very, very strong. Her 3 are all very strong, with a low cooldown stun as well. Nox goes down a little bit. She's just as hard to play as these two, but she lacks, because of her dash and her passive being irrelevant for support. She also has a weaker laning phase than Eset and Baron. Her ultimate is great, but she's very 1-2 reliant, and that's all she's good for. These guys have a little bit more play, a little bit more. I mean, what's the word for it? A little bit more pizzazz to their kit. But Nox is a fine god. She has some good matchups into. I think people like playing it into Terra. Probably good into silencing combos like Athena. You can play against Athena. Athena can't go in close range against you because you just place your 2. If Athena dashes in, you place your 2 at your feet. The Athena's now fucked. It's reverse the engage. If the Athena then goes Magi's Cloak to stop that, then you just place a 2 on her preemptively, force her Magi's, and she hasn't got Magi's anymore. Yeah, those are my placements for those. Sobek is going to be going G tier as well. Sobek is good with regrowth, which makes him a little bit better than maybe you think. The problem with Sobek is that his 1 puts you out of position quite a lot, and it's bad against mages. Mages are very strong right now with Tablet of Destinies and Reaver. That's not even support Copium. That's just how it is, boys. His 2 is very close range. His 3 is very mediocre. He used to be very broken level 1 and level 2 with his Hulk and his healing and his prots. Again, dual lane a little bit boring right now. Just with how strong junglers are, they can come over. Nothing really happens. So Sobek's lost his lane prowess, and then late game his ult's a little bit too slow. So he's a fine god. You can combo with gods like a Wheelix, usually a pretty good combo. You can play an Uller and go crazy in dual lane, but he scales a lot worse than every god above him, and even gods on this tier list, he's probably worse than. Why Sobek plug someone when you could just Nox 1 them from further away, round a wall, without putting yourself out of position? One other thing to mention as well is Lona's Mask can be built on all 3 mage supports. It can be built on Fenrir too. Not talking about Saket, she's shit, get her gone. But the Fenrir it can be built on, that's fine. Lona's Mask, very strong right now, especially with Cloak. Cloak did get a nerf, but Lona's Mask still very strong with mitigation. It's a very unique mage and assassin thing. I guess hunters as well. But these gods can abuse Lonas if you get Cloak and then go Thebes or something. It's very, very good for prots. Next up is Kuzumbo. Kuzumbo is going to be in C tier. The thing about Kuzumbo is Kin's just got buffed, which makes hunters better. Technically, Kuzumbo is better against hunters, but again, he just doesn't really snowball early enough. And late game, unless you're building triple damage, triple defense, and going Blink Thorns, which means you're not peeling for your team, you're just diving. If they're hunters immobile, you can solo the hunter. If their hunter gets any sort of peel, you can't solo the hunter, and then that's it, your game's over. Because Kuzumbo are not the best against mages unless you're playing against, for example, I'm trying to think here, a god like Poseidon, a god like Raijin, where you get a lot of tick damage going and you can immune the crowd control from those gods. But just a very mediocre god. Not the best, in my opinion, right now. Probably one of the weaker gods. Overall. Next up is Sylvanas going to S tier. Sylvanas is a very good peel god. It can also dive if you go Blink 2, but it's a little bit rare to do that. But I would recommend trying that, going Blink Sylvanas and going, for example, Thebes into Divine and seeing your ult do 800 damage early game is pretty fun. Very good at peeling, very good in lane, very good around fire giants, very good at engaging randomly. A lot of freedom with your relics, good against junglers. Very bad against mages. That is the one thing that Sylvanas is terrible at. Sylvanas has very low mobility, very low movement speed. His healing doesn't really matter against the high mage poke right now. Yeah, mages usually can stand further away because their ability is usually longer range than the 55 auto-attack range. But Sylvanas is very strong, especially if you're duo with a jungler or an ADC. He's a go-to god for me. I'd recommend playing him. Cabrakan is going to be in beta. I think I had Cabrakan a little bit lower before, but Cabrakan is actually pretty good. Now he is blink reliant, but his kit is very strong with the slow immunity, the high protections, the mitigations right now that are key. He's good against mages because he's got the root immunity and the slow immunity. He's got a lot of crowd control. The wall is very good as well. For example, let's think about a god like Scylla. Okay, Scylla. Good against most war gods because she has the 3. However, against Cabrakan, he has his 1, which is root immune. So Sylvanas, even though she can get over his cage, he can immune her 1. So you blink on the Scylla, you stun her with your 2, you 3 a little bit, she tries to run away, you 1 after her ulti, you know. He's good against the mages that are good against normal guardians. Very good at diving, can build a damage item, very good against frontline, can peel. You know, he's got an undeniable stun, he's never going to be terrible. Very good god right now. Next up is going to be Ymir. Ymir is down to A tier. I don't know if he moved up or down. I think he's gone down. Was he A tier? No, I think he was an A tier last time as well. Again, junglers and ADC is a little bit too strong. He's also got a problem like Ymir, like Sylvanas, where he's bad against mage poke. Then again, every guardian's not great against mage poke, besides maybe like Maui, who can jump over it and pull them regardless. Not blink reliant, which is really good. But his level 1, level 2, which he used to be able to invade purple, that's a lot weaker than last year. Then you've got no Scepter. He was one of the best Scepter gods in the game because you'd walk up to red buff level 2, level 3 with Scepter. You'd hit for 76 in auto. You'd do it before the mage even got there. The early game's gone. Late game, the walls are a little bit weird. It's going to take a little bit of time. Maybe he moves up to S. I think I spoke about last video, but now he's going to stay in A. He's not a good cloak god either, and a god with that little mobility usually wants to be a cloak god because they're going to be getting in people's faces. Sylvanas can be a cloak god with his ranged autos. Ymir cannot. His 2 and his 3 are too slow. They also self-rooting, therefore it's not very good for him. Ganesh is going to be in... Is he going to be in D tier? What do we think? I think he is. Ganesh, again, we spoke about before, bad matchups into gods with Wingblade, Regrowth, Atlas, very low CC. His 1 gives a damage increase off of waves. That doesn't do anything. That doesn't do anything for me. I think a good balance change that should be made for Ganesh is you should be able to Ganesh 1 through your allies and increase their damage. Like Khepri 2, but Ganesh 1. I've never actually, I thought about that on the spot. Maybe that'd be pretty cool. Increasing your damage allies, like for objectives and stuff, that could be a pretty nice buff. But for now, I don't think he's very good. He's very ult-reliant. You want to build a lot of CDR. If you do get a good ult engage off and you trap a god in, and you hit for 600 on the ult and stuff, and shred all their prots, it can be good, but he's so ult-reliant. His 1, 2, 3 are so terrible. It's not even funny. Ganesh passive, not even good for carrying a rank game. Good for duo queuing with someone, but again, it's just a little bit of a mech god. Doesn't need to go blink, I guess, is his positive side. A little bit of mobility, but not very ult-reliant. We don't like that. We don't like ult-reliancy or blink reliancy in my community, so you can stay. Yemoja is going to be an S again. She's staying up there. Now, Yemoja a little bit different to every god in here. I want to be careful with people trying to pick her up for the first time. This god is the most difficult god out of all of these 4 abilities, out of these 4 gods, compared to these 4 gods, because she's got a unique mana system, unique build system. Her ult's the longest cooldown, so if you mess up, you get punished for it. She's got her abilities have different stages. Her 3 has 2 different uses. Her 1 has 2 different uses. Her 2 has a lot of intricacies with shield damage and stuff. You can also mess your own team over with the ability of the 3. A lot of other gods here can't really mess your team up. Horus is the only other god that can throw your team in the wrong position. Umoja 3 can do that, and a lot easier as well. But so very high skill floor, very hard to play. But if you get good on it, you're going to be owning. If you look at the Umoja ranked tier list, like the leaderboard, you'll see a lot of Umoja players on there, and I guarantee it that the average Umoja player on that leaderboard will be higher on average rank than other Guardians, is my prediction. Just because she usually takes a little bit. Usually, the more you play her, she's a very good god to win with. She's probably probably her and Terra are my highest win ratio gods this year so far. She can build damage, she can build defense. Doesn't need to go blink, but she can. She's very good against mages with a long range 3 in the poke. Very good against guardians. Not the best at hard CC, but she's very good at engaging, so that makes up for it. Just a great god overall. Cerberus is going to be a D tier god as well for me. When we talk about binding nerf, binding affects Cerberus the most. His 2 was really good with binding because it used to shred all their prots. Not the case anymore. His passive is good, but if you notice, a lot of gods here are really, really good for with healing. Cerberus' passive is kind of outdated now, especially with items like Tainted, Brawlers, Contagion, Divine, Ankh. His passive is kind of fallen by the wayside. Should probably get buffed a little bit, in my opinion. But the problem with Cerberus is that if you buff him in support, he gets buffed in solo. And in solo, he's always been better in solo than in support, ever since I've been playing comp. He does okay damage, but it's very low, very close range. And again, we've spoken about Hunters and Mages doing a lot of damage right now. He's just a very mediocre god. Why play Cerberus when you can play Bacchus? He has better anti-heal. He has more damage. He has more mobility. He has mitigation. It goes on. Khepri is going to be in... Let's put him in Sita. Now, I think I might have put him in detail last time, which maybe it's a little bit low. The thing about Khepri is... the thing about Khepri for me is that I think he's got a lot weaker. He's not the best into wall gods until super late game. You have to be very careful with him. The walls are so narrow now, you can easily get body blocked in, even by mistake. His early game, his level 1 was actually very good, even for how passive he is. His level 1 with the shield generation and the damage on his 2 being insanely high damage with a low cooldown of 12 seconds. The problem is that just doesn't matter anymore. Dueling kills are very, very meh. He's very susceptible to being ganked early by a jungler, with his dash being kind of mediocre. Not the best damage level, like level 2 to 3 either. Look at Terra with her 1-2-3 combo. She can do like 300 damage. Khepri has his 2, and that's pretty much it. So not great at turning around ganks either. But again, one of the best gods in the game late game. Just getting there is reliant on your team, and we don't like team reliancy because support can support, but you're usually flipping a coin whether your team is better or not. So good sometimes, good queuing with a jungler if you want to be passive and then win late game for free, but usually mediocre. Jing Chen is going to be D for me. There's a few things that we don't like. Blink reliancy, big time. Good against Hunters with the 1, reducing their damage. The 2 is very, very bad. It applies 2 stacks of DR. The 3 is just safety. The protections the protections you get from Jing Chen 3 are only while you're jumping. Or the 3 seconds afterwards. So there's such a short time for that increased protections that it doesn't really feel like you can have a 3 in and go crazy. His ult does a lot of damage, but it's very, very melee range and you can miss it a lot of the time. Not great in laning phase. If a jungler walks at him and hits him, you can 1-2 them and jump away. But you don't do that much damage until you get your ult online and get a damage item. So he's going to be in D tier this patch. Even with Hunters getting better, you assume he would get better, but no. Mages, again, very strong against him. They can just hit him and run away. Cumber also in D tier. His 1 is the worst ability of any Guardian. Is the worst ability for a Guardian in the game. It does no damage. It's a short dash. It's shit. His passive is very, very rarely good. With the slow increment... Wait, this way. With the slow increment increase over... every year in Smite, gods have got more and more attack speed because items get buffed more and more. Kin size got buffed this patch. So did Bladed Boomerang is kind of a melee item, so we'll ignore that. But more builds typically get more attack speed over time. So Kumba's passive has actually got worse because there's more attacks per second. So his passive's terrible, his 1's terrible, his 2's actually a good ability now, his 3's fine, so is his ult, but actually getting in there, he's very ult reliant for me. He is very bad in lane. His you can't really have a bad 1 and a bad passive and get away with it. It's not really something that you can rely on and support. He's not even the best late game, so he's not good early. He's fine mid game. But late game, you compare him to a Khepri or a Yemoja, or even a Sylvanas. What are you doing? You're not going to be winning against that. Next up for me is going to be Artio. Now, Artio has a different problem. Artio is very good early game, but very mediocre mid-late game. She isn't blink reliant. You can't build blink on her. She's fine for CC. She's good against. She's annoying against junglers. The problem for me with Artio is I feel like right now that junglers get out of control way, way earlier than ever. So the problem with that is that you can't ever control them. And if you're a god like Artio with very damage that takes a lot of time to get off, you have to 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. It takes a lot of time to get your full kit off. Junglers will just be hitting you the entire time with the 2 items over you, 2,000 gold over you, and kill you in the meantime. Sometimes gets fucked by walls, sometimes needs beads into bad matchups like Athena, Herc, Ares. Just not a good god right now. She needs... Then again, the problem with her and Cerberus, for example, let's put them together, is these two gods are better in solo. Even Jing Chen, better in solo. If these gods ever get buffs, they'll just be played in solo way, 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 way too easily. These gods are just bad, and these are just the worst of the peel gods in support. And then finally on the tier list, I guess we can talk about Fafnir. Now, Fafnir, for me, is actually going up a little bit. Fafnir is almost an S tier for me. Now, Fafnir has got protections, very high protections, good gold gain, which means you stay relevant in the entire game if you're farming. His 2 procs Tablet of Destinies and Reaver, which is fantastic. His 2 procs Divine. His 2 buffs a Hunter. Hunter just got buffed. That sounds good to me. He buffs Hunters. Hunters got buffed. Hey, nice combo. He's got a form of untarget. He's untargetable in his ult. He's got a form of... You can do it twice, actually. He's got double CC immunity. His laning phase used to be very, very shit. But with laning phase being irrelevant now, and the amount of objectives being reduced, he can now time his ult correctly for just the big objective at the time. Let's say there's gold. There's gold. Let's say spawns at 5. Well, it spawns at 5. Gold spawns at 5. Let's say you fight at 5 minutes. Then there's no Scorpion, there's no cups at 6, right? There's no cups at 6. So now you have a long time to wait, and you're not very good without your ults. That's why he's not an S tier god. But now you can just wait till Pyro spawns at 7. Boom, it's up again. You don't need to fight very often. Which is why it's good that it's fine that he's ult reliant. I think I got that point out there. Maybe a little bit spluttery, but Fafnir for me is very strong. Does good damage, good defense, very mobile. And good with Hunters as well. Also good against Mages too. You can just jump in late game on them and hammer them, and then ult, and they're forced to jump away, and it gives you a second jump, so they can't really get away from you. Sometimes maybe you can get baited by ulting at the wrong time. I think he's quite a hard god actually to play with, even though he's quite easy to play mechanically. To use the kit correctly actually is quite difficult. As a backup here, we have other gods here that I would speak about. For me, you can speak about a few gods that have been playing support before. Tyr, I don't really consider support anymore. You've got gods like Odin, again very unique, but can be played in support. But again, they would be a mech god. Gods like I play hunters like Artemis and Onher. I genuinely believe Onher would be around here. Artemis would be around here for me. Honor would be around here for me. But I'm not going to put them in because people wouldn't understand it. Not they understand it. Sorry, you can't play them in ranked without getting in trouble. I think the reason I can get away with playing them is because I'm a named player. You would probably get reported for playing these two in a game below platinum. That's why I think you should avoid them if you can. You've got gods like Mulan as well, wherever she's hiding. Mulan is probably the most notable warrior up next, but she would be in D tier. She has a problem. She's probably in C tier with these boys. Just a very mech god. She's got her good things and her bad things, but she's very, very low CC and very high damage. And usually your damage gets outscaled by the enemy jungler. And then you can't take fights with a jungler, which means what's the point of playing the game? So yeah, I think that's the tier list done. I'm going to wrap it up there. If you have any questions about gods that I've missed and stuff, then let me know. I really hope I haven't missed any gods this time, because that would be very embarrassing. But yeah, let me know what you think. And that's my predictions for 10.2. I'm going to put on the screen now, I'm going to put this patch, what I think is going to happen in 10.2, and compare it to the old one, and just show the differences and where things have moved. Anyway, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.